speaking beyond our borders, on land, on the seas and in the air. This is the Chief Koti Show.
Folks, what's up? Thank you so much for joining me once again. Today I'm talking to a business titan, a tycoon of sorts, if I can say that, but he's also a very spiritual man, very strong, strong-willed, and he's an achiever. He's very addicted to success, I think, from what I've been seeing. But anyway, everybody else who comes here is definitely addicted to success. And I have the pleasure to introduce Ken Sharpe, very good friend of mine. Ken, how are you?
I'm good, Chief. How are you?
I'm strong, man. It's good to see you. It's been a
Good to
while.
see you. It's good to see you, man. I don't know how your arm twisted me to get here because I've had so many approaches to be. I had so many people even come to me on my own podcast show and said, "Can we just switch roles so we can interview you? We want to hear your story." So I don't know how you managed to persuade me, but
it's for our friends who want to be successful like
Yes.
you, and obviously we want to pick up a thing or two from your journey. That's what we want to talk about, really. And they want to talk to Ken Sharpe, the businessman, maybe,
Right.
but we want to talk to Kenneth,
The human being,
that guy.
the being human.
Yeah.
No, I think it's great.
Good.
I think in life we have to pay it forward, right?
Of course.
Because we're given so much, and what we give back is really what God wants from us.
Absolutely.
He's given us our life as a gift, and what we do with our life is a gift to Him.
Yeah.
So just being here today, it's a gift to you, it's a gift to those who watch it. And I wanted to just correct you in the beginning because you're my younger brother,
Of
Muninina.
course. Yeah. Oh, I like that.
I'm not, too Madara yet, but I'm Mkoma. So I need to
very
share
good.
some wisdom. And,
Yeah.
when you talk of success and these people listening, young people out there,
Uh-huh.
it's not about success. Yes, I was driven by success until I was 30, to my 30s. But then I realized, how much success do you want? How many millions do you want to make? When you get over a certain number, it doesn't really make a big difference. Whether you're a billionaire or you're 100 billionaire or you're a trillionaire, trust me, you can't spend the money.
Ah.
So at some point in your life, you start asking the question, what am I chasing? And I would rather say, instead of saying we're chasing for success, let's say that we are going to be successful in order to be significant. So let's chase for significance in our life.
Self-actualization.
That's it. Because success is, unfortunately, it comes and it goes and it's short-lasted.
But that sounds very polished, Ken. You
Yeah.
know? But the truth of the matter is that when you have bread and butter issues to worry about, so you always think that there's a number that you need to reach.
Yes.
You always think that there's certain things that you must have, and that for you is success. But obviously, when you change, when the dynamic changes and you have these things,
Look, I think, and talking of the hierarchy of needs, Maslow's pyramid is clear that to get to that self-actualization, you need your basic needs covered. So I think I'm not speaking about basic needs. Yes, we need to provide those basic needs.
Of course.
But once you're providing those basic needs, and how much does it cost someone to eat? Is it $100 a month? Is it $1,000 a month? Perhaps anything in between that, but it's not more. So you can live on $1,000 a month, right?
I guess
You don't
you
really need
can,
to be that successful to get that money.
Shamar, you need money. Anyway.
But then
Yeah.
once you're there,
Uh-huh.
my point is, what are you doing with your life? Because
What's
if you're
the
just
next step?
chasing success, are you going to leave something behind after you? If you're chasing significance, regardless if the money comes with it or not, that significance will speak louder and last longer than the money.
I see what you mean. Very powerful and some serious wisdom there. So I think we will definitely shift our focus to that and talk about legacy as well, because that's a
Yes.
very big thing. Talking of legacy, just open the door for us to Ken's life. When did it all start? And where did it begin?
Yeah. I took my bankers around yesterday to show them the progress on some of the sites. And one of the guys said to me, I'm really interested in your story. Tell me, how did it start? How did you get into property? So, I think, and I said to him as well, if I go back in history, everyone thinks that when they hear the name Ken Sharpe, they think billionaire, guy with lots of money. And it's not always like that,
not like they're
We
wrong,
all
though,
start
right?
somewhere. We
Okay.
all start as a baby. We start without movement, without words. But when I go back to where I was born, and I don't want to say I'm disadvantaged, or I came from a disadvantaged background, or we were impoverished, because that would not be true. But I do think that we struggled. My parents struggled. There were times when school fees could not be paid. When I was born, my father was a miner in Missouri South.
Okay.
And we didn't even have a house. We were staying in a mud hut. My mom was
A mud hut.
Yeah.
Come on.
I'm telling you.
Which
it was a-
Mulungu stays in a mud hut?
No, my mom was cooking on a wooden fire.
No way.
We had a grass roof. I'm telling you.
Really?
Yes. So my father was building the house,
Uh-huh.
but he was spending the money on the mine, so he couldn't
What was
finish
he
the house.
mining exactly?
Gold mining.
Gold.
He was a gold miner.
Big money. Big money.
So then my aunt, when I was born in Boyanahanda, Lady Chancellor back then.
Mm-hmm.
And my aunt was the general manager of the Jameson Hotel. Her husband, Jan de Haast.
Yeah.
And Auntie Margaret, my father's sister, said to my mother, you can't take the baby back to that place.
Yeah.
It's not good enough. Just bring him here. We'll look after him and you for a few weeks.
Yeah.
So I stayed in the penthouse of the Jameson because they were living, the general managers were living on top of the building.
You arrived in Stanford.
So I got used to that, you know. You know what I mean?
I see what you mean, yeah. No, but that's really good. So then what happens after that?
You know, so the story starts. I'm
Mhm.
born in Zimbabwe in 1973. It was the time of the Civil War. There was chaos. And, you know, growing up as a young guy, we moved a lot. My father, so we were in Mashonaland.
Mhm.
And then he left to Matabeleland, to Bulawayo when I was about 4. He got another mine. I went to school at Kumalo
So
Primary
you're a
School.
Buddhist boy?
A little bit.
Oh, geez. That's where I come from. That's where I
Okay.
grew up.
Really? Yeah. So yeah, I spent a few years there as a youngster.
Okay.
And we lived in the suburbs. We had a comfortable life.
Mhm.
Then my father decided to move back to Mashonaland. He had a mine in Shamba, gold mine. I went to school in Harare to start with, and then Marandera. And then I left the country in 1990 to go and study overseas.
Okay.
And at that stage, I think I was somewhat confused about my identity, about whether being born in Zimbabwe meant that I was a Zimbabwean. You know, being a white guy growing up in a black country is not an easy thing. Everyone thinks it's not an easy thing to be a black guy, you know? But I felt it was not an easy thing for me because I didn't really identify with my own tribe.
Uh-huh.
And I felt like a stranger in my own land. What am I doing here? So I thought for a time, maybe I must go back to the land of my ancestors.
Yep.
Because my great-grandfather came from Britain, and my ancestors before them were Vikings from the north who had come to conquer England.
So you're
you're
a lord in your own right.
So where do I go? Yeah, I mean, we've got some claim to some fame. My great-grandfather was the inventor of the electric light bulb.
Okay.
Sir Joseph Wilson Swan. So his daughter Hilda is the one that eloped with my great-grandfather, Captain Robert Sharpe, and went to Africa.
All right.
So you could say 4 generations ago.
Yeah.
And I'm an African, there's no doubt. My identity is clear to me now. I'm a Zimbabwean. I love Zimbabwe.
I haven't seen anyone who loves the
You know, my
country
blood
like
is just as red as yours.
Yeah.
But then as a youngster, you know, we tried to find our space and our direction. And it didn't work very well for me. I was living with my great aunt. And she passed away. She was 92. So I came back home. This was 1990, end of 1990, beginning of 91. And I met my wife-to-be, who was traveling to South Africa, but it was apartheid, and the Soviet Union had boycotted South Africa. So the closest embassy they had was Harare.
Okay.
And she stopped in Harare to get a visa to continue to South Africa. And I met her, and I just knew instantly this was the woman of my life. I knew that's my wife. It was love at first sight.
You were confused by the lights?
No, it was, you know, there was the natural beauty, attraction, of course.
Those are the lights, man.
It was more than that. It was more than that. It was almost like spiritual. I can't explain it. It's just like I knew in my spirit, man, that this is the woman I have to get.
What spoke?
I told my best friend, I'm going to marry this woman. He said, no, you're crazy. You don't even speak her language, you know. She's way above your level. So then I followed her. She went to South Africa. I followed her. I tried to talk to her. She didn't speak English.
Why are you that whipped?
Yeah, no, I was.
You had to go to South Africa.
I gave up everything. And then I got a translator to translate because she didn't speak English. I didn't speak Russian. She's from Ukraine, but from the Russian-speaking part of Ukraine, Donetsk.
Yeah.
Bakhmut, where they've
Donetsk.
Yeah,
that's the one that we know.
Unfortunately, they've destroyed her town. It's gone. It's just rubble.
Oh.
It's terrible. So, you know, after trying to chat her up, she was not really interested in me. I got her to give me just her number and the town where she was from. And then I came back and told my father, I'm going to the Soviet Union. And he said, no, you're not. You have to go back and study at school. I said, no, I'm going to find this girl.
And how old were you at this time?
I was like 18 years old. So I flew to Moscow in just this shirt, a white shirt, no jacket. I didn't know where I was going. It was middle of winter. I arrived in Moscow and they said, no, you've come to the wrong city because she's in Donetsk. It's closer to Kiev. You have to fly to Kiev. So I had just enough money to buy a ticket to Kiev, got stuck at the airport. I thought, the airport maybe was close to town, but it's like 40 kilometers out of town. It's in a little village area. And I ended up actually being helped by some people because that was the time when Soviet Russia was still communist.
Yeah.
So there was KGB, there was mafia starting, gangsters. So I had to find a way around these difficulties. And fortunately, angels came to help me. One lady at the airport saw me, felt sorry for me, asked me my story. Then I had no money. I literally had no money left. I had no money, nothing. I either had
All
to
for love.
All for love. I either had to go back on the plane home now or find a way to continue
At least
without
get a
money.
return ticket.
I had a return ticket.
Yeah.
And then her brother was a taxi driver, got to her place. She phoned my wife. My wife didn't even know I was coming. She had no idea. And said, this guy is here in Kiev. He's coming to see you.
You are such
do we
a
do with
risk taker, man.
So she said, no, it's okay. I'll organize him a train ticket.
Uh-huh.
And someone will bring him the train ticket.
Wow.
At this hotel. So I went to wait at the hotel for hours. And eventually I'd given up because I couldn't see the person who was coming. And I was walking out the hotel. And then these two young guys came in and I realized they were looking for me.
And they
rushed me to the ticket and went to, we went to the train, got on the train, went to a town. And then the next task was for me. So for me, it was getting this girl, right? That was the main thing. And the next task was getting around her difficult mom because she had a very strict Soviet mother, communist mother. And this mom was not interested in this young capitalist coming to pollute her daughter's mind. So I had to persuade the mom. And after a few weeks, I started speaking basic words and a few sentences.
You were actually staying at their family home?
Yeah. Oh. And there was no Google, there was no dictionary. Nothing. I just had to really try and listen and learn. And after a few weeks, she said, okay, if you go back and do these things, then my daughter can follow and come and be with you. So I went home knowing that I've got a potential girl.
Secure.
I have to now set myself up. So I rented my first apartment, Appaloosa in 5th Avenue. I chose a beautiful place. It was a townhouse, 2 floors. Couldn't afford it. I couldn't even have the deposit, In fact, I remember my uncle was the owner of Aztec Boreholes, one of the biggest companies in Zim then.
Yeah.
And I went to see him and said, can you sign a surety on this lease? They won't let me sign there. I'm too young. I don't have a job. He's like, no ways. There's a risk. You can't do that. He spent like an hour lecturing me how to talk me out of this. But little did he know that was the only option I had to bring the girl, So eventually I got the place. I found the deposit. I made it happen. I started cross-border trading, groceries. Literally carrying.
Like a Malay challenge.
Yeah.
Jeez.
But back then it was difficult because there was no imported goods.
Yeah.
So you could double them. You bought something for R1, you sell it for 2. So I had a little bit of capital that I got together, go across, buy some things, bring it across, sell it. Then I started getting into cars, bringing cars and importing them. OGIL came, so it was ESAP.
Oh yeah.
If you remember the economic.
Yeah.
Then OGIL, the Open General Import License. So you could get some licenses to bring in goods.
Yeah.
Started trading. And then Ukraine opened up because the Soviet Union collapsed. And 92, 93, goods started coming into Ukraine. So I started trading there, made friends of my partners there. And the rest is history,
Jeez.
Over the years, I was in many businesses, maybe 100 different businesses, 50 plus partnerships.
How many failed?
A lot more than succeeded. They say the statistic is about 90% failure.
Yeah.
So I'm probably half of that, probably about 45% failure.
Jeez, but how do you manage that failure? After having struggled so much to try and.
What's your end game? What's your end game? You have to ask yourself. Being an entrepreneur is not for everyone. I don't believe that everyone is born like that. Sometimes circumstances create the necessity for you to become like that. Sometimes you have that talent naturally. And I guess mine was a bit of both. I always liked as a youngster to make money, to trade, to buy and sell things. And then through necessity, I had to provide for this wife to be the bride. So, I had to start working young. I didn't finish school. I dropped out of school at O levels. And
Why though?
Why did I drop out?
Yeah.
Love, the heart. The heart said to me, this was my purpose, to get this woman. So I was prepared to give up everything to have her.
I hope my son is not listening to this.
The kids these days don't believe it.
He will drop out and say, but Dad, he made it.
I think the point is you got to follow your heart.
Mhm.
Your heart doesn't lie to you.
And you guys are still together now?
Yeah. We were married in '93. So that's 32 years of marriage.
Wow.
32 years of marriage.
I can see my producers, they're not even that age yet. So they are wondering what happened. Okay. So now that you've gone through this part of failure and all these things, there's a story that I picked out somewhere along the road somewhere that you actually went all the way overseas with only $17, was it?
It was actually £100.
It was £100.
Yeah,
What would tell us the story? What happened there?
So my father didn't really want me to leave the country.
Mhm.
And I was adamant I wanted to leave. So he got me an air ticket and he literally took me to my aunt and left me with £100. So that's how I, started.
And you had to hustle through that 100.
Yeah.
And
So I had
double it
to,
somehow.
well, I had to get a job
Mhm.
as well as go to school. So the easiest job I could find was timeshare selling. I don't know if you guys know what timeshare is these days. But so property developers were selling timeshare 1 week holidays, and they would have to have some smart guys on the telephone to attract people to it because most people were not interested. They'd heard about this gimmick and they thought it was a scam.
Yeah.
Because I had an accent, I was quite successful. So, people got talking to me on the phone and where you from? And they thought I was from Australia or South Africa. So I managed to get quite a few of these people and I got decent commissions,
So this is where the love for property started, eh?
Yeah, it did. I don't know how true you believe this is true, but I think everything in life you're influenced. They say before the age of 2, 90% of who you are is determined. So if I believe that statistic, then probably living in the Jameson had an influence on me.
The penthouse.
Probably enjoying that penthouse. I've always enjoyed property. As long as I can remember, even if I only had $100 in my pocket, I would go to a 5-star hotel. And back then, 5-star hotels you could buy for less than $100 and stay in the 5-star hotel. I might be eating like my wife once told me. I took her when I was dating her to this beautiful 5-star. It was the Colton. I don't know if you know Colton Center in Joburg downtown. Now it's dead, right? But Colton was, before Sandton came up, Colton was the hotel. So I took her to the Colton. And then I only had money for McDonald's for dinner. So it was like living in the Colton but eating in McDonald's. So I always loved property. It's always been in my heart. And I believe that true wealth, lasting wealth, the legacy, is built by ownership of property, equity, not debt. So don't buy a property with mortgage, buy it with savings. Because that multiplication factor happens over the generations.
Wait. So what you're talking about now, that's in an economy like this, for people to actually put that money together, it's a struggle. I think you agree with me.
It's never easy. But the benefit we have of being in this economy, it's a blessing, is that we don't have debt. We don't. Do you know that our company today has more mortgages than the banks?
That sounds like privilege right now.
Our company, let me explain what I just said. Our company, where we're sitting today, Westprop, has more mortgages than banks have. We have issued more mortgages than banks. Our country has zero leverage, which means that all the property in the country, we're talking of hundreds of billions of US dollars, are owned with equity, with cash.
Straight away.
We're in a very unique, privileged position to be in. So the temptation will be to borrow against that property. But then the risk of losing that money is high because I said 90% of business fail. So why would you want to take something that you already own and then risk it? So it's not easy, it's a struggle, but it's worth it in the end. Whether it takes you 10 years or 100 years to own a property, it can be done. But you have to start somewhere.
That's a difficult thing. And I think perhaps you might want to dig into that a little bit to encourage some of our followers, who perhaps are like us in the struggle, in the trenches, and there seems to be no light at all. How do you then make it to get to those levels where you say, I'm now saving up for a property, I'm now saving up for this, I'm now saving up for that? Because it's a hand-to-mouth type of economy. Things are very, very tight, Ken.
It is. But I'll give you an example, a real story from my life. I was driving a truck a 5-ton truck. With my wife, we just got married. So 93, we got married. So this is probably 94, 95, before my daughter was born. I was having a business distributing confectionery, international brands in the region. So I had agencies for Zimbabwe, Zambia, Malawi. And I sent a manager to Malawi to start selling these things. And he came back and said, they're too poor. They can't afford sweets. They can't buy chocolates. I said, there's no ways. Anyone can afford a sweet. Let me go and see myself. I loaded up a 5-ton truck, refrigerated truck. I drove it myself. My bride here. We went to Nyamapanda. We spent 2 days there, got into Malawi. And I made a success of that. I sold all those 5 tons. Maybe it was $50,000 US, which was a lot of money back then.
Wow.
Maybe I made $20,000 US profit. So back then, for a 20-year-old guy, $20,000 US in less than a month. It's a lot of money, right?
You're swimming in money.
To someone that said, you can't do it, it's impossible. And I said to my wife driving there, I'm not going to do all this all my life. I'm not going to be driving this truck and selling sweets all my life. This is a means to an end. But what I want to commit today is that we own 5 properties in 5 years.
Wow.
She was like, what? What are you talking about? I said, no, we have to own 1 property to live in, that's our home. Then another property to go on holiday, so we don't pay for holidays. Then we have 3 more properties that pay us rent, so that when we get older, I don't have to rely on a pension. We'll create our own pension. So she says, I don't know if she thought I was crazy or a genius, but she said,
crazy,
she said, go for it. It sounds like a great idea. So I thought it would take me a year. It was the first time I stopped drinking alcohol. I gave myself a year. I said, I'll stop drinking. I'll take it seriously. I'll make money. I'll save. So about 5 years later, I had the 5 properties.
Wow.
And I started by borrowing. You had to do all kinds of things, getting a bond, this and that, whatever had to happen. But after 5 years, I'd paid them all off. Pure equity.
That is quick.
If you put your mind to it, you can do anything.
You can do it. So you've been to Harvard.
Yes.
This story, how did that happen? you dropped out of school and then miraculously you're at Harvard. What happened? What was the journey there?
I like the word miraculous because I think there's so many miracles in my life.
Yeah.
But I applied. I had a friend that had been there to a program, and he said there's this program for business owners. Applied to it. It's difficult to get in, but it's worth a try. So I applied the first time, no chance. And then some years went by. Same guy said apply again. I tried again. Nope. And then someone else told me, why don't you try again?
It's the third time.
I'm sure it can be possible. And to give you an idea, this program is harder to get in than an MBA. An MBA at Harvard is probably 1 in 10,000 chance of the applicants getting in.
Wow.
So you're competing with the best
of the best
in the world, right?
Yeah.
But sure enough, they offered me a place. So without having a degree, without having finished high school, they offered me a place. And I went to study a 3-year program, OPM. We did 120 case studies, staying in campus 1 month a year, normally over 2 years, but because of COVID, we delayed. So it was over 3 years. And now I'm an alum. I'm an HBS alum.
Congratulations. Well done on that one. Yeah, it's a very big one. And how has been the stereotype of not having been educated when you're now walking into these big rooms and you're talking to big people?
It was something that I both feared and revered, because in my young days, from teenager to probably early 30s, I had a ponytail. I had long hair. So I'd walk into these meetings with a ponytail, and maybe I was 20, and there'd be guys around the table in their 50s. And they would look at me, and they would just,
what is this boy doing?
They would just think, no. This guy's wasting our time. But as soon as I sat down and started talking, I don't know what it was. I just captured the room, and they paid attention. They respected me.
You're a very good orator, I think.
I was never like that naturally. I mean, I was very shy as a kid. I was not a people's person. I had very few friends, stuck to myself. So I think it's just through experience, you learn. You have to make it work, right?
Of course, you gotta try harder every day. So I hear a story. You once worked with Hubert Angel?
So yes, well, Hubert actually worked for me.
Oh, Hubert worked for you?
Yes.
Okay.
So when I was running the food business, the distribution business, we had a place in Prospect Industrial Park. a big warehouse, probably 3,000 square meters with foodstuffs and goods. And we started a bottling business, African Twist. We started manufacturing some soft drinks and things. We were the first in Zimbabwe, by the way, to bring PET, the plastic bottles. And he came and he got a job as an accountant.
Yeah, the finance
He was
guy.
a clerk. I think he was like a debtor's clerk. And he actually taught my sister-in-law how to drive a car. And I think he must have been 19, 20. One day he
before
comes
he
to
went
me.
to the UK.
Yeah. One day he comes to me and he says, "Boss, I'm going to the UK." I said, "What?" "I'm leaving." I said, "What to do what?" He said, "No, God has called me to be a prophet." I said, "How did that happen?" He said, "No, God appeared to me and said, this is what I must do. I must go and serve in the UK." So I thought it was very strange. At that time I didn't really have a faith. But I didn't really question him. I just said, "Okay, so how can I help?" He said, "No, I need some funds, a ticket." I helped him a bit with money. And he went to the UK. And then I saw him maybe 25, 30 years later. He called me up. He actually sent me a video of his estate. He had a beautiful estate in England.
He had made it.
He'd really made it.
Yeah.
So I was very proud of him. And he'd made it, God's way, not his own way.
Yeah. And you guys kept in touch since?
We have, yeah. On and off, I've been to visit his church twice. I went to one of his services. I think he has a special calling.
Yeah. He's a brilliant guy.
special
He's a brilliant guy, I think, but very sometimes controversial. But yeah, he's very.
Well, they say where the tall trees grow, the wind blows the strongest.
I see. And then there's always talk now, obviously on the business side of things. Ken Sharpe, no way. He is definitely fronting somebody. He's fronting the president of this country. How far true is that?
Well, they said that about me with the last president.
Wow.
So maybe what I was fronting for the last president, he gave to the new president. I don't know. Maybe they'll say that about the next one also.
Okay, cool. But you've been rubbing shoulders with these guys. How did that come to happen?
Again, I can't claim any fame. I think God places you in unique situations where doors are open to you. And you choose, do you go through the door or not? God never forces us to do anything. But I think that when doors of high places are open, there's a reason for it. You're being allowed a privilege to have access that ordinarily you're not given. So I've taken those opportunities and I've met presidents of many countries. I was at the United Nations General Assembly in September last year, and I was sitting at a table where there were 4 presidents.
Your gift
2 African presidents,
for you.
2 European presidents. On that side was Elon Musk with the Italian president, prime minister. And on this table was the Kenyan president and the Ghanaian president and the Greek president just behind him.
Wow.
So how did I get into that place? I can't claim that I tried to do that or that I strive to do it, but it happens. And I think it's what we do with those opportunities that count. Because we have a choice to do nothing about it, to sit back and complain, or we have a choice to apply our minds into those places of influence and try to make a difference in a positive way. And that's where my heart is. I'm building Zimbabwe for Zimbabweans. I'm not building Zimbabwe for myself. I have enough money. How many more houses can I build or own?
Oh,
there's a limit. But I think at the end of the day, what we're trying to do at West Prop and what I'm trying to do is to improve Zimbabwe for the future. And if I'm going to do that, I need the support of whoever's in power.
Yeah.
Whether it's the president of today or the president of tomorrow, whether it's the cabinet of today or the City of Raleigh officials of tomorrow, that we all need to collaborate, to work together, because the kind of projects that I'm doing are on a national scale. We're talking of billions of US dollars of capital.
They're not individualistic at all.
They're not. So I'm not just building a house for one person. I'm building thousands of homes, tens of thousands of homes. I'm building cities, I'm building shopping malls, I'm building hotels. So that requires the interest of the state. And the head of state, whether we like him or not, is in that position of power. He's in that position of influence. So I need to talk to that person and to make sure that what I'm doing is within the vision of that individual and that time of the country. Because if it's not, then I'm wasting my time.
Of course. Spoken like a true businessman, but from young Kenneth, who was busy playing somewhere in the Mazoe mines, in the Bulawayo mines, in the Shanga mines, how does that feel to be able to sit in front of a head of state and control conversation and change the outlook of things and say what you just said to us now, to say, no, Mr. President, I'm trying to build a country. I need your support. How is that for you as an individual at a personal level?
I feel humbled because I'm able to speak my mind. There's nothing I wouldn't say to you today that I wouldn't say to the president. And there's nothing that I would feel fearful of telling him, even though many others would feel fear. Because I'm not doing it motivated by any interest. I'm not motivated by any political gain or by any monetary gain. I don't actually need anything from the president. But what I do need is for him to understand that what I'm doing is good for the people. And if I look back to my younger years, it's humbling to think I used to play in the bush, not knowing what my future, I still don't really know what my future is, right? But I look back and I don't feel any different to being in the bush, enjoying the environment with God's creation. I don't feel different sitting next to the president and speaking to him what's in my heart, because it's the truth.
What do you think is the most controversial thing that you might have just said to him in one of your meetings?
Well, recently I've been saying that the ZIG is not working. So no one wants to hear that the sovereign currency of your country is not working. And I believe it's not working because too much attention was given to it in the beginning. It's negative PR. We had 3 months build up, beginning of last year. There was so much hype, and then an anticlimax. Like, what is this all about? Back then I think it was $80 million they were talking about. Now it's probably $500 million US dollars. It's grown a lot. They've done a lot. But at the end of the day, the mainstream economy is between $4 and $8 billion. So why aren't we focused on growing the mainstream economy? Why are we taking the limited capital we've got and putting it into a reserve currency that's sitting in the bank with some deposits that don't even equal its reserve, which is the only country in the world, by the way. We have the highest number of reserves of US dollars of gold backing this currency than any other country in the world.
Yeah, because we're still pretty much almost applying the gold standard in a way.
We are even more than the gold standard, because we are saying that our reserves are more than the deposits. So we've overbacked it. It's more than 100% guaranteed. So in a way, that's a good thing. But in an economy that's struggling, that needs the velocity of money to turn over, we're now seeing a decline, an economic decline. And I warned about this. I warned the president before it came, and I've warned him during, that it's a risk we're taking. Because if we don't have flows of US dollars,
we'll be in trouble.
And those investments require confidence in the country. It requires multinationals to back us, which is not there today. So I think it's too early for us to shift from a US dollar economy into a ZIG economy. And the market has not accepted it. So you can try and force people, but then at the end of the day, it will backfire. So I think it's a much better policy to say, let's have ZIG, let's build up our reserves, but do it quietly. Let people naturally accept it and naturally want it. But in the meantime,
do you think they will, though?
Eventually, why not? Eventually, why not? People get used to things, right?
Current establishment,
it's about trust. It's about trust, right? So maybe today there's limited trust, but in 5 years, would there not be more trust? If the economy has grown 10 times in USD and there's a local currency and people are using it, why not? People would choose what they want to use, but don't force them. So I believe we should have a multi-currency economy permanently. Like the 2030 deadline, I think, is dangerous again because it's being looked at. It's expiring in 5 years' time. So probably that's the most controversial thing. And that's in my heart because I want to sustain what I'm doing. What I want to do is sustain what I'm doing. So many people don't agree with me.
I wonder what his responses would have been, but I think he's a very listening guy.
We do have a listening president.
Yeah.
But he keeps things to himself,
He does, yeah. He does. I think he does a lot. Yeah. But anyway, away from from the controversy of politicians that you've probably rubbed shoulders with, and I understand also you're serving in some consular position somehow. Is that true?
Yes. So I have an honorary council position, which is like an ambassador that doesn't have an embassy in the country. So Kazakhstan, which is not represented in Zimbabwe, I'm their local honorary council.
Oh, how did that come about?
So again, I was asked to be the honorary council for Ukraine. My wife is from there.
Yeah.
And then the war broke out, and I decided it would be probably better for me to wait.
Okay.
and the opportunities. So honorary councils are really not politicians. They're more interested in business, bilateral relations, in tourism, and those kind of things in a country that's war-torn or difficult. So one of my Harvard friends is the biggest developer in Kazakhstan, BI Group.
Yeah.
And he had encouraged me to come. I went to his 50th and saw the country and what they're doing. And at the same time, the embassy said, we don't have anyone in Harare. Would you consider being the council? So eventually I said, sure, let me do it.
And how's that going?
It's good. It's going well. Yeah, I think we've taken the first delegation to Astana. I was part of that delegation, and off the back of that, we've created the first, let's say, international financial center in Africa. Zimbabwe now has as an act of parliament. They passed the bill recently to create the Victoria Falls International Financial Center, which is an offshore zone in a country that functions outside of the country.
I always say Victoria Falls is like a country on its own. Like,
it really is.
Whenever I'm there, like they never experience this electricity issues. They never experience this and that. But because obviously there is attention that is being put there, and I like what the government is doing as far as that is concerned. And talking about Victoria Falls as well, you have listed within the VFX.
Yes.
Such a milestone as well. How did that come about for you?
So for me, it was a selfish reason. I believe that we got to the point of our business where we needed to access bigger capital. We had we have a $300 million balance sheet, and we needed to access capital markets. So we looked at the opportunity of listing on the ZSE, on the VFX. And for reasons, again, of sustainability, I believe US dollars was a more sustainable currency. And that allowed us to be permanently USD based. So we took the decision to give up some ownership, but at the same time allow the public to participate in what we are doing. And when I looked at the vision we have, our vision is not a selfish vision. It's to put 1 billion bricks in the ground by 2050. That's bringing $5 billion US dollars in today's economy of capital into Zimbabwe to build Zimbabwe. That stays permanently in Zimbabwe. So why not give up some of that benefit, some of that success to others that want to share in that journey? And this was the mechanism that allowed us to open the door. Of course, there's a spin-off benefit. So, the PR that comes out of it, the transparency, there were questions on us. We were unknown. Today we are known.
You were always known as a very dubious kind of businessman. I think because of your political connections.
Yes.
How did you clean yourself up, to perhaps to get out there? Obviously, maybe you were already clean inside.
Yeah.
But from an outside perspective, we saw a very
back on the days when I was doing the airport road, Ed Silvoso, who was like a spiritual father to me, he came and he said to me, he actually blessed the road when we started that project.
Yeah.
And he said to me, don't worry about the controversy, because God uses people that are least obvious. So God makes the weak things strong. God takes the least and makes them the most, right? And he said to me that as you go through this pain, remember that God will vindicate you in his time. I mean, I was accused. I was even on this scandalous thing with there was a Russian spy arrested in the US, and I somehow got involved in this scandal, and I was on the front page of the London, this Daily Express and the Sun.
So I saw that.
So it was like, how did I get into this mess? But there were just continuous things that gave me exposure in perhaps the wrong way initially to the media, that gave the wrong perception of who I was. But over time, and I think it's through your fruits that you are judged, right? So over time, as I've been able to do what I'm supposed to do, people have begun to realize the true side of me. And that's where I think the press and the publicity have shifted to being more positive than negative. Of course, we know newspapers love to sell sensationalism. And that's will continue. We can't change that.
So how does this work now, Ken? You are I watch a lot of movies, by the way. So I always see the bad guys, they always have a ponytail. And you always spot one. So how did that work?
It was just something that I enjoyed having long hair.
Yeah.
And kept it. My best friend is in the US, and he often says to me, I need to grow it back. If my hair gets any shorter than it is now,
Yeah.
it's like he phones me and complains and says, it's too short. You have to let it grow again. Don't cut that hair. But I reassured him I don't have the strength of Samson.
So it was not even that. I see. But I want to wrap up this conversation with you. Of course, we've just let in everybody into our conversation so that at least they can learn a thing or two, which I have learned quite a bit. What would be your parting shot to youngsters who are trying, who are still at that level where you were driving that 5-ton truck going into Mozambique, into Malawi, trying to make some money or trying to make ends meet?
I'd say stay sincere to yourself. Firstly, because you look at yourself in the mirror every day, and you have to face yourself when you wake up in the morning and when you go to bed at night. So whether you believe in God or not, He's there, and He'll judge you. He knows who you are. He knows your heart. So when you stick to what's in your heart, God will help you. Don't chase glossy things and the luxuries and the material things of this life. They'll come to you. All these awards, by the way, I didn't know 90% of these organizations that gave these awards to me and to us. But it's not about that. I don't chase after those things. I believe that we need to, as individuals, look deeply within ourselves and say, what do we want to be remembered for? How are we going to make society a better place than we found it? That's the legacy that I want to leave for my children. When I was 17 years of age, driving a car back into Zimbabwe, I said to myself, I don't want to make the same mistakes as my forefathers. I want to make a difference for the next generation. I want to leave something that they'll remember me for. And I think staying humble is important. Servant leadership. It's about serving the people. It's about allowing peace, which our politicians need to focus on peace. That was the thing that went viral, by the way. I just posted about peace.
Yeah.
Let's have peace in Zimbabwe. I was actually fasting 3 days for peace.
Wow.
And normally if I post on X, I get a few hundred. This one went 400,000 people.
See, that was a big one.
So I said, let's just have peace.
Yeah.
Because peace leads to prosperity. And prosperity benefits the people.
Absolutely.
So for me, it's about staying true to yourself, staying humble, but realizing what benefit you can bring to society. Instead of sitting back and doing nothing or complaining about it, do something about it. Find something that someone needs, whether it's a good or service that someone needs, and work on that. Focus on that. And when you find a formula that works, scale it. And then the money will come. The success will come after that. But first, it starts with being genuine.
Yeah. Tell me something non-sequitur, really. What kind of car do you drive now?
I actually don't own a car.
I know.
I promise you. I used to own a lot of different cars. And my wife has 2 or 3 cars. She likes cars more than me. But I don't own a car. The company has given me a car.
Yeah, but what kind of car is it?
So the car the company has given me, the one I'm driving right now is a Land Cruiser. A VX.
See, let me tell you why I asked you that question, actually. You just walked into the trap.
Yes.
So, we believe on this show that it is such a Varungu thing to drive Land Cruisers. And I don't know, is it?
So let me tell you the truth. You'll love this story. I was out of the country when the fleet was bought. This is going back just a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
We decided to buy a whole new fleet for the company. The chairman of the company is based in Cape Town, Dr. Michael Louis, chose the car for the CEO, a Range Rover, a black Range Rover. That was the company car.
Yeah.
And I drove it for the first year. And then I said, no, let me move to a Land Cruiser.
Why?
Because of the roads. How can I be driving a low profile mag wheel that's going to hit potholes? It's not as strong as a Land Cruiser.
No, but
so I'm just
how
practical.
often do you drive in potholes, really? I mean, just maybe 1 or 2 you're going for a side visit.
Both cars are beautiful.
Largely you're living here, going home.
Both cars are beautiful.
Yeah.
The Range Rover is a beautiful car, the Land Cruiser, but my heart is with Mercedes. I always used to have Mercedes. When I went to live in South Africa, I moved to BM. So I shifted from being a GL ML fan. Yeah. That was my car. I went into X. So I got an X5. And then I enjoyed that for a while. I had a 5 Series BM, and then I moved back to Mercedes. So if it was a personal choice, if I was to buy a car today, I would probably buy a Brabus SUV or the GL.
a G-Wagon or something. But thanks, Ken, for making time for us. We really appreciate and of course, Worst Prop. I think they're going to be partners of this show. We have to say this to the people. They have to know that we've signed a deal here today. They're going to be advertising. So when you see these houses that we are going to be selling to you, please just go and buy them. I know you're doing something absolutely amazing for tourism down in the Warren Hills area there.
Now the Hills Luxury
It's
Lifestyle.
called now the Hills,
The
eh?
Hills Luxury Lifestyle.
I always drive there and I see
big
the,
wall.
I see the big wall.
They told me yesterday it's almost costing us $5 million. It's 5 kilometers of a wall that's 5 meters high.
It's a long thing because there's a golf course in there, right?
Yes.
Have you started doing
It's a $300 million development, so we want to make sure it's protected.
Where are you getting this money from, Ken?
From the people. The money always comes from the people. The money is always with the people. Not with the politicians. It's with the people.
So what's your totem? There's a parting shot that way we have to go now.
So I think let's believe in Zimbabwe. Let's focus on the future of Zimbabwe. My vision, my strategy statement, actually I developed it at Harvard, was the longest one. Out of all the cohort, the students had 5 to 10 year maybe maximum. Mine went 30 years into the future. Yeah. So I'm living and breathing every day 2050.
Wow.
For the next 25 years, I'm focused on putting 1 billion bricks in the ground. We're at 83 million bricks today. We are bringing the best, not what Zimbabwe has to offer, but the best of what the world has to offer, we're bringing to Zimbabwe. Because we believe in you. We're building a better future for you. Thank you very much.
All right. Fantastic. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time. It's been great talking to Nzo. He says he's in Nzo, but he's got lots of shumba around the office. But I don't know how that works. But
remember, the lioness, I have to say this. So the lioness is sitting just opposite me there.
Yeah.
And please make sure the viewers can see this shot.
Of course.
There's a lion and a lioness. But it started with a lioness. Keith Ndlovu, who's Nzo.
Yeah.
He's my brother. He's a doctor from Paraneto. I found him on the internet having this talent. I bought that painting and then commissioned him to do another one.
Yeah.
He eventually did one for the president and then the whole of parliament he did.
Yeah.
So the reason why I wanted that lioness was because that's our strategy at West Prop. I say to everyone, we are like lionesses. When she goes on the hunt, we have to choose the prey, select it carefully. But once you know your prey, don't lose sight of it. Stay focused on that prey until either you kill it or you lose it. So that's why there's shumbas around here.
That's all for you guys. Thank you so much for joining us for yet another explosive edition of the Chief Koti Show. We're back again next week with another exciting guest, and you want to know who it is, but maybe you can tell us who you want us to talk to on the show. Please do share on the comments there, and of course, give Ken some super love. He's got his podcast. It's called The Phoenix, right?
Phoenix.
Yeah. So make
Phoenix
sure you
podcast.
make sure you check it out. It's there on ZTN Prime, I think. That's where you're showing it. Yeah?
And YouTube.
And YouTube as well. Yeah. So please go and support him as well. As much as you want to subscribe, like, and share our content as well, please do give him some love. And
Speaking beyond our borders, on land, on the seas and in the air. That was the Chief Koti Show.